Welcome to Video 1 of Section 4.3, Lesson 1. Here we will be using graphs to accurately represent data. So let's begin. Example 1 says, both graphs represent the population of Newfoundland Labrador. Now how are the graphs the same? I see the graph on the left represents the population from 2000 to 2018, same as the graph on the right. They both have time in years on the bottom and population along the side. So they both represent the same data. So let's say that they both show how the population of Newfoundland Labrador has changed from 2000 to 2018. Now, even though they show the same information, the graphs look very different. So how are the graphs different? Well, if you look at the scale on the y-axis, this graph here starts at 500,000 and goes to 540,000. Now this graph here starts at 500,000 as well, but it goes to 700,000. So the second graph is more stretched out, has a wider range, making the graph seem more linear, whereas the first graph has a smaller range, making the differences between years more pronounced. So let's say that the vertical scales are different. Making the population change look much different. Now, which graph gives a better representation of how the population of Newfoundland has changed from 2000 to 2018? Well, I'm going to say that graph A suggests there was a big drop around 2007, which is not really true if you look at graph B, so that better represents the population change. So let's say that graph A suggests there was a big drop in population in 2007, which is not really true. So graph B better represents the data. So explain how the first graph can be misleading. Well, as we just said, it makes it look like there's a bigger change than there really is because of the scale. So because the vertical scale has a smaller range, it only goes from 500,000 to 540 as opposed to the other graph. So because it has a smaller range, it makes the population change appear greater than it actually is. Now, example 2. According to a consumer report, cola products are the leaders in the 2.5 billion Canadian soft drink market. So here we have cola A versus cola B. Now looking at the size of the bars, what conclusion might be made? Well, it certainly looks like cola A is many more times more popular than cola B. If we look at, say, this block, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 times more than that. So it's making it seem a lot bigger than it might actually be. So cola A is many more times more popular than cola B. That's the way it appears anyways. So who do you think actually created this graph, and why would they make it like this? Well, I would say that cola A trying to make their product look more popular than it actually is. So cola A, they want to make their product look more popular than it actually is. So what are two things that were manipulated on the bar graph that could be misleading for someone looking at it? Well, for one, the width of the bars aren't the same. So that's one thing. But also, if you look at the scale, it doesn't start at 0. If we drew a graph that went from 0 to 28, and then we drew another bar that went from 0 to 25, they wouldn't look that much different. They were only 3 apart. So I think starting at 24 was misleading as well. So let's say that the bar widths are different. And the vertical scale does not start at 0.